Hi, my name's Becky. So I had put out a few videos on me wet felting and Nuno felting, and I had a few comments in both of those videos about that there was no description or step-by-step tutorials. And to be honest with you, I had never done that before, so I didn't know how to do it. These were kind of just videos that I wanted to put together easily, and it just did not happen easily. It took me like a month to do both of them, and I was kind of hesitant to do another video because it was just so hard to do the first time and the second time. So I wanted to help you guys out though, and I didn't know how I was going to do that, so I figured the easiest way really for me would be to do a few videos. So the first video that I'm going to do is on fabrics and the fabrics that I use for Nuno felting, which ones I feel like are the best for Nuno felting, and also like questions that I had when I first started Nuno felting that I couldn't find on the internet. Now you probably could find more information on it because it's getting a little bit more popular, but when I first started, it was very difficult to find any information other than silk to use for Nuno felting. There were very few videos, and most of the videos that were up on YouTube were in a different language. So you kind of had to use your imagination. So I'm gonna turn the camera around so you can see all the types of fabrics that I use, and I'm gonna go over each one of them, and then in the description box below I will put a link to the ones that I actually use, so you can go online, you can buy them yourself. And I will also, after I run through all the fabrics, I'll go over some questions that I had when I was first starting, and try to help you out there. Okay, so let's flip this around. Okay, so we have silk gauze in two different weights. So we have 4.5 and 3, and the in silk, this one I don't have labeled, this is 5 mm. So the in silk stands for mommy, like M-O-M-M-Y, mommy, but it's spelled M-O-M-M-E, I believe. And so basically, it's the weight of 100 yards of silk to pounds. So an example of that would be 8 mommy weight means that 100 yards of that silk weighs 8 pounds. So 4.5 means that it is 4.5 pounds per 100 yards. So Nuno felting terms and felting terms, what is the best weight? Now, I guess that really depends on the effect that you're going for, but generally you want to stay below an 8 mommy weight. 4.5 is a little bit more substantial than a 3. So the lower you go in the number, the lighter the weight, the more fragile the silk is. So a Habotai, right here, this one is a more substantial silk than the silk gauze, which is right here. Let me see if I can find an end to it. So you can see how loose the weave is on it. This is extremely light, and it's very translucent. And this one here, you can see the weave is tighter, and it's not as translucent. Now, ones that are going to be a little bit harder to compare to would be the gauzes. So gauze to gauze, this one's 4.5. So you got the 4.5 here and the 3 here. Now, again, the 3 is like that. and the 4.5, oh, that's a corner. The 4.5 is like that. So the weave is tighter. It's still very translucent, but not as translucent as the 3 Mommy. The ones that I have up front are all the ones that I use in my felting. So then we also have, and I don't know how to ever pronounce this. I call it butterfly silk because it's just easier to pronounce. So you can find this online as well. Now this has a sheen to it like the Habotai, but it is a very loose weave and very transparent. But it's very pretty. And I'm going to go into details too in a future video on the effects that each fabric has. So this one, when you're felting with it, the fibers will pull the merino or whatever fiber that you're using to felt will pull the actual silk fibers in the fabric, in the weave, and it'll create like these really cool holes. And it's really neat looking. But if that's not the effect that you're going for and you want something that you can actually, let's say you're making a shirt, I would use the 4.5. It's a little bit more substantial than the 3. So that's a good silk to use for that. Any of these are good for scarves if you're starting out with, and that's really what this video is for people who are starting out. So the silk Habotai is going to be a little bit more tricky to use when you are first beginning in Nuno felting, and that's because of the weave. The weave is much tighter, so when you're felting, it's going to take longer for the fibers to migrate through the weave of the fabric to the other side and felt. So you want to take your time with it, and I'll go into more detail in a different video, but if you go too fast in the felting process, what will end up happening is you will have the wool that you are felting will not migrate through the fabric. If you're felting too fast, it'll just felt together and it won't migrate through. So you'll just have a piece of felt that has never attached to the fabric. And that was one of the things that I had learned in felting very early on when I started using the Habotai, was that it was harder to work with and a longer process because you have to take your time with it. Okay, so we have all the silks that I use. So we have the butterfly silk, silk gauze in both weights, the 4.5 and the 3, and then we have the Habotai silk. All of these you can use with Nuno felting, and they work beautifully. Now, if you're first starting out, I would suggest you go with the silk gauze 4.5 or the silk gauze 3. Okay? Or you can go with the butterfly silk if your intention on whatever you're making is to have a lot of essentially holes in it, but it holds together, so don't worry about that. Okay, so if you're wondering how they actually make the fabric, it starts off with these little cocoons. Okay, these are actual silk cocoons. Okay, those are all silk cocoons. The silkworm goes in that. Now, when you soak these, you can stretch them and you can make silk hankies. These are silk cocoons stretched out. Now these are like thousands of them, but you can see the fibers on it, right? Now, if I show you the silk cocoon, let's see, can I get it here? Can you see the fibers? See those little fibers here? Now, what they do is they pull these little fibers, they soak them, and they pull them into this, which is silk roving. So this is just a bunch of those, let's see, bunch of those fibers. Okay? And that's how they make the fabric here. Okay? All right, so let's put that over there. Let's put the silk cocoons over there. All right, so moving on away from silk. And you can buy silk online, and I don't know, if you have a local store that sells silk in the yardage, that's fine. But make sure you can find out what the mommy weight is. Remember, you want to have a lower number. So 8 is really the max that you would want to go in the mommy weight. But I would stick to the 4.5 mommy weight or the 3 mommy weight, okay? Okay, so next we have cotton gauze or cotton scrim. Now, you can find this in Joann Fabrics or online, your local like craft store. This is one I just dyed, but you can just buy it on the little bolt, or you can buy it by the yard. Now this can come quite thick as well. The weave can come thicker, weave can come closer. So you want to make sure that the weave is a loose weave, okay? And that's with any fabric that you're going to be using in Nuno felting. You want to make sure the weaving is loose. And I will show you what weaving would be too tight and what you want to achieve for the weave. Okay, so that's cotton. We have Viscose Fabric. Now, this is kind of similar to the cotton in texture, right? So if I do this, and this one's dyed, obviously. But I'm going to see if I can get that up. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so see, you can still see my hand. The weave is tighter than the cotton gauze that I had over there. But the weave is not so tight that the fibers can't go through. This would work perfectly. This would work fine, okay? Now this one is a blend. This one is a poly and viscose blend. So the texture is a little bit different. Let's see if I can get, now see how tight that weave is? But the fibers will still go through that. Okay, let's see if I can get it even closer. No. The fibers will still go through that. Okay, and it's got a pretty design on it, and that's fine. You can felt with that. That'll work fine. So when you're looking at fabric that is not silk, I never buy anything that is not silk online. If I'm going to buy a fabric that is not silk, I'm going to buy it in person so I can inspect it myself to make sure that the fibers can migrate through the weave, okay? So the next thing we have is the polyester fabric. Okay, this is actually a shirt. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you find a fabric that you like, that just so happens to be a garment, you can use that fabric if you think that the fibers will migrate through. Now, polyester is a trickier fabric to work with because polyester can have a slip to it. And if the fabric is too slippery, the fibers will just literally slip around on it and not be able to stick to it. It has to have a little bit of a texture. And the way you can tell is this one's fine. So this is one that I would work with, okay? Now you can see the weave on that. That is still workable. That is perfect. That will work fine, okay? And the pattern on it is beautiful. Now this one, this is another polyester, okay? But this one, I would have to do a test on, okay? Now you can see the fabric or the weave of it is fine. The weave of it is loose and the fibers can go through it, but the texture of it is a little bit slippery. It does have some like grittiness to it, so it may be okay, but I would do like a little sample test on it. I would do like the corner of it to make sure that the fibers could actually migrate through with it before I did a big project with it and it just never can go through. Usually if you take your time, you will be able to get it through. But that comes with experience too. So that being said, I would stay away from polyesters until you get comfortable with the Nuno felting process, and you kind of want to experiment. Or you can experiment and figure out for yourself, you know, which ones will work best for you. Okay, so I don't know if I covered everything. If I didn't, if anyone has any questions, please ask me. I will be happy to answer them. All right. So questions I had when I was first getting into felting were, one, do I have to use silk? And I feel like I covered that. No, you do not have to use silk to Nuno felt. Two, okay, if I don't have to use silk, what could I use? And you can use the cotton gauze. You can use viscose. You can use a polyester or a polyester blend. The other thing was, do I have to buy it online? That was a really big one because at first I didn't want to fork out the money to pay for the silk because silk can be expensive. And if you're just starting out and you don't know whether or not, you know, this is something that's going to stick that you want to do all the time, you might not want to spend the money on silk. That being said, there are a few websites that have really good deals, and where I get my silk, these ones here, the silk gauze and the Habotai silk, I get from Dharma Trading Company, and they have phenomenal prices. So I always use them for my silk. Unless it's the butterfly silk, I usually get that on Etsy because they don't carry it on Dharma. I didn't know if you can go somewhere else to get fabric. So I started going to Joann Fabrics, and because it's just local here. So I went and they had silk, but it was silk Duponi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's like Duoponi or something like that. That is like, that's for curtains. And obviously I didn't buy it because it was very thick. I'm thankful I didn't buy it, and it's because it's also expensive. So I would have bought it experimented with it and regretted it because it was so expensive. So don't buy that. That's for like for, I guess, skirts or curtains or something like that. The other place that I was wondering if I could go to was Goodwill. And I ended up going, and I had found some silk garments, and I'm like, I wonder if this will work. And I never really saw anything online that told me I could or couldn't use, go to Goodwill or Salvation Army or consignment shop or something like that. Told me I couldn't do that. So so I went ahead and I bought whatever it was. I don't know, that was years ago. And I used it and it worked great. So yes, you can go to a consignment shop, Goodwill, Salvation Army. Silk is silk. So how do you know it's silk? Well, it has to say it on the piece that you're buying, right? If it's a consignment or Goodwill or something like that, you don't know, the people that are working there don't know what it is unless it says it on the piece that you're buying. So make sure when you are going to a consignment shop or Goodwill that the piece that you're buying says silk on there, unless you want to experiment. So I have a few pieces here that I got at Goodwill at some point or another, and I've used some of it. So this one, to be honest with you, I have no idea what it was. Actually, I might have gotten this at a tag sale. Now, this well felt, okay? You got the weave here, really big weave. And the texture of it is not slippery. This is really gritty. Now, if you see in here, you'll see like that silver. This is all things that I did not know when I first started. Yes, that wool felt, there's nothing wrong with that, to have embellishments in your fabric. That wool felt. Okay. Now, you say, okay, embellishments. Well, will this felt? Yes, this will felt. Okay, these will felt all the way through. It's attached to the silk. So, and this weave is very, very thin. This has got to be a 3 mommy weight. It's very light. Now, the lining of the silk, I don't use, okay? This is a polyester. The weave of this polyester is, see how the difference here with this polyester, or this weave? This weave is very, very tight. Right? That's a very tight weave. Now you can kind of still see my fingers underneath. But this weave I wouldn't use, first of all, because it's polyester, and just, I don't know. Unless I wanted to experiment with it, and but it would just be a lot of work, and I'm not really wanting to go through that. So let's just show you here, actually, in the light, if I can. You can see the weave of this, right? This part here, where, okay, this is the weave of the silk. This is the silk with the polyester in the back, and then this is the polyester. So you can see the light difference of that. Okay, so this is silk, and I know this is silk. Well, one, with experience, but two, because it said it was a skirt set. And a lot of pieces, usually if it says it's from India, right? If it's from India, usually it's silk, and that's because they wear these elaborate headdresses, or I don't know what they're called, and just these beautiful dresses that are have these appliques and embellishments and embroiders on it and stuff like that, and they wear these to parties, and it's usually silk. So This one, this is an actual shirt, okay? So, got the cuffs here. This is a shirt. Now you can use this. This is silk, and I'll show you here. 100% silk. Okay. Now, if you are buying from Goodwill or, you know, consignment shop, and it says silk, you're like, oh, this is great, silk. But if it's a thick silk, like I was talking about at Joann Fabrics, because there are different types of silk, like remember the Habotai silk, the silk gauze, the butterfly silk, there's different types of silk, and it comes in different weights. So when you are looking at a fabric at one of these stores, the consignment shop or Goodwill, and it says 100% silk, you kind of have to trust yourself when you look at it and you look at the weave. Is the weave okay? Yes, this weave is fine. This is a little bit of a tighter weave, but that will work out okay. Okay. Now, this is silk too, because remember it said 100% silk. This, I would guarantee, would not work. Okay, this is way too thick. I mean, you can't even really, I can't even get there we go. I don't know. There, okay. You can't see through that. That will not work. So this is a good demonstration. Will work. Will not work. The cuff will not work, but this will work, and you can just cut those pieces, the pieces that will. Okay, so that's that. If you have any questions though, please just let me know in the comments below, and I can go through that. Remember, this is just for the fabric. I will go through, I think the next video I'll do will be on wools to use, fibers to use, because it doesn't have to be wool. You know, is it just wool that you can use, or can you use other things? And you can use other things than merino. And depending, and everything has a purpose. You know, different fibers have different purposes. So it depends on what you're going for. If you are going to be felting a garment or like a scarf or something like that, you want to probably you're going to stick with the finer wools. If you are doing something like a wall hanging or a felted soap or something like that, it doesn't have to be merino. It can be other fibers. Okay, so that will be the next video I think I'll tackle, and we'll just do it one by one, and then hopefully I can figure out how to do a tutorial on felting in general, just how to do it. But that should be coming up shortly if I can get these other videos out, so that you can actually go out there, buy the supplies that you need, and then watch the video on how I do it. Okay? All right. Well, if you have any questions, let me know. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Sorry that the videos are such terrible quality. I'm not a really great speaker, but I'm going to try my best at getting these videos out. Okay, take care.